Hello, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Corey. I'm the founder of beatingtrauma.com. And today we are going to talk about another topic involving recovering from trauma. Specifically today, I don't do this a lot, but I'm going to focus a little bit more on abusers' strategies. I mean, I do focus on the subtypes, but a lot of times they focus on more of like our own inner healing journey. But abusers' strategies often do drive a lot of the things that we, in fact, need to work towards healing. So it's not really that far-fetched to kind of talk about this. And I've talked about it before. I've written about it too. But it's really coming up for me today in a new kind of way. And I'm going to be really cryptic now. And I apologize for that. Because the last thing we need as survivors of trauma is people not telling us everything. But I really can't tell you everything in this particular moment. But I did just discover a very, very powerful abuser from my past. And when I say powerful, I mean loads of money, loads of control over loads of powerful people whose family is kind of taking a bit of a fall. And again, I'm not going to get into all that's involved, but I will say they're taking a fall in a very specifically appropriate way. And for me, yes, I am, kind of saying, thank you, karma. You did it right here. But it also got me thinking a lot. Well, a lot. Like I've been thinking a lot about this the last 24 hours, which is about when I found out. And it got me thinking about the messages we hear from abusers and how those keep us. And they really do. And I know I have written an article about this previously, like several years ago, but this is probably a bit of an updated version for you guys today because it's really front and center for me right now as I sort of watch this person who gave me a lot of impressions about him. And I'm kind of seeing that none of that is actually the case. And it's really opening my eyes to just how tricky these people can be and how that stuff can get stuck in our systems and hold us back in some pretty dramatic ways. I certainly have had that experience. So I want to talk a little bit about that. This has also been a newer revelation, even though, like I've totally known, again, I've known this for years, but it's sort of coming up in new ways for me right now as I sort of watch things unfold and to get memories back because I am continually on that journey to kind of move out of dissociation as fully as humanly possible. And I'm going to start off this discussion today by saying abusers rely heavily on our dissociation. They rely very heavily on us remaining dissociated, okay? That is so important. And oftentimes they will continue to come at us well into our adulthood to ensure our dissociation remains intact. Now, there's a lot of ways, even on a macro level, society encourages dissociation. Even as simple as not really educating people about dissociation, despite the fact that certainly those who have any kind of power know very well that dissociation is real. But people are trying to suppress the reality of dissociation, like they don't want to let people know it's there, because if we know it's there, we might start to build awareness around the fact that we have it. Right? But in addition to that, they want to keep kind of coming at us so the dissociation stays intact, which means that we are kind of unconscious to the very belief systems that are holding us back in our lives. And that's really where I want to focus today because those belief systems they're just killing us, man. And we need to get them gone, right? We can't get them gone until we see them, which is why I do these live streams in the first place. As we wake up, we can sort of begin to see just how nonsensical these beliefs are. But again, we have to wake up. We have to recognize them. We have to see them. We can also see how contradictory they are. Contradictory belief systems cannot exist in your system once you become aware of them. When they hit the frontal lobe, you start to work them out and balance them out because those can only live, contradictory beliefs can only live with separate parts in the psyche, which means unconscious, right? They can't live here, so we don't know about them. So we will literally try to walk a tightrope between two different beliefs, and we won't even know we're doing it. So this is so important for us to see them, especially contradictory beliefs. I think mainstream psychology refers to this concept of like cognitive dissonance, right? So like different belief systems that. And you'll usually hear you can't hold two opposing beliefs at the same time. Yeah, that's untrue. You can't hold it here, but you could definitely hold it in the unconscious. And that's why we need to bring awareness to this and remember what's going on. I want to share with you some of the big belief systems that I've probably known about all of these for a while, but they are really hitting me right now, especially based on what I told you about at the beginning of this session with things kind of falling apart for one of my primary and most powerful abusers. It's actually the most powerful abuser, interestingly enough. So it shines a new light on all of these belief systems. So that's why I wanted to bring them to you today. So the first belief system that we were likely told when we were young, and again, when we're told these things when we're young, when we're being traumatized, sometimes simultaneously, it really implants that in the unconscious. It sits with those parts in the unconscious. And then we don't know we've still got it, but we've got it, right? So it's in there. So this one is that people with power are somehow better than people without power, okay? Now, when I say that, I'm saying they are literally somehow a better person. Like there are things about them innately that are different from everyone else, right? Or from people that are below them, I should say, right? And this goes all the way back to when people who were establishing themselves as royal or landowners or knights or dukes or whatever it was would claim superiority over peasants. Quite literally, like, I am a better human being than you are. I have been almost like, given like by God himself some kind of traits that make me a better human being, right? So this is a really common belief system that we hear. And the thing about it, it's particularly potent when we are children and we have no power, right? We don't have any. So this belief system kind of gets in place that says there are people who can have a good life, these people who are innately better than others because they have power, and then there are us, right? And this belief system becomes sort of the basis for shame. You could say that shame is based on decisions we've made, but I would say that honestly, a lot of times it's not. It's actually, it is, like our shame will use those things against us, believe me, when they're talking to us. But the basis for shame is more of an innate, like, I am innately not as good as others. Like, it is ingrained in there. And, it's sort of the basis. It's the basis for shame. It's the basis for imposter syndrome, right? These are the things we feel because of the crap we were told when we were younger. And this is a big one. And this is one of those things that's unraveling for me right now, especially around this dude who is just getting hit. Yeah, a pretty significant situation right now. And I'm like, I didn't think that this kind of thing happened to people who were innately better than others. And it's really kind of brought this back up. It's making me think about it. It's like, maybe that isn't true, right? Now, obviously, my conscious adult self knows that none of these beliefs are true. There are a couple instances, and I'll talk about those, where it's like, yeah, well, sometimes it can be, but it's a matter of how we look at it. But generally speaking, my adult self knows none of these beliefs I'm sharing with you are true. The problem is that it's the parts, it's the karma kid, especially in that one. It's definitely karma kid. It's the controller, it's the inner children. They are the ones that think it's true. And when we can't see that they think it's true, we get stuck, right? Because we're trying to move forward, because we know this stuff isn't right, and we can't, right? And there's a lot of ways in which we can't, which is subject for another live stream. But that, these are the beliefs that sort of underlie that, keep us in that place. So the second belief I want to talk about is that abusers are invincible and deeply invulnerable to authorities and punishment for their actions, right? And I'll be honest, as children, this is easy to believe because they generally are not getting any trouble for the way that they're treating us, right? And to be fair, like, this is often because they have money, but I'll be honest, even people who come from families with no money or don't have or have abusers who don't have money, which, by the way, that isn't the majority of abusers like society likes to tell us. But yes, money can do a lot to keep somebody from being caught at things or, hiding it, kind of covering it up. And by the way, I watched that play out with this abuser too. It didn't work for him this time though, but it has worked for him a lot. So, to be fair, there is an element of truth to the idea that abusers usually do get away with a lot of what they do. And, again, money, one of the big reasons for that. Another big reason is that what they're doing is extremely difficult to prove and often is not happening with witnesses. The witnesses are usually other abusers or victims, right? So, and those victims are dissociating. So it's really, really hard to prove this stuff. To be fair, often our legal system is in fact sort of set up to support the abuser as well. So there is some truth to that, but it doesn't mean it's always going to play out like that. And many times significant entitled criminality, which means criminality that is happening with this belief system that you will never get caught for it, right? So entitled criminality has a way of eventually revealing itself. Now, this belief system that they will never be caught, they will never pay for what they do, they will never, be seen as anything by other than whatever mask it is they're trying to use, is the basis for futility in our system. It's like, why bother? Why bother trying to do anything? Like it's never going to work out. They're always going to get away with whatever they've done. And there's nothing I can do about it, right? So that is the basis for futility. Believe me, that's not the only basis for futility, but it is a big one. And futility, along with shame, are two of the biggest emotions for getting us stuck, right? So working with these belief systems can be incredibly valuable. The next one, this is big. And this often, if we are in sort of one of these families with lots and lots of abuse that's pervasive and it's been happening for generations, we may hear this one. And even quite frequently, sometimes it becomes more prevalent as we become older and the freedom fighters start stepping forward and we start trying to differentiate ourselves from our families. This message might come in, and this message says that once we have made a bad choice. Okay, now let me be clear about this wording because it's what they say to us. It's not reality. We are normally in survival mode and we are normally given a choice, which is not a choice, right? We have to do that thing to survive. But the way it's framed by the abusers is that it's a choice, okay? So once we have made one bad choice, we can never change, and we have to live this life as like a bad person. And this is one of the ways, and this is also one of the contradictory beliefs I'm about to talk about. This is often used to make us the same as our abusers, okay? So it's a big karma kid thing. But ironically, it goes directly against the idea that the abusers are better than us. Once again, that idea I talked about earlier of belief systems that contradict each other, that is very, very real. And here's one of the places that plays out. So this belief system will be the basis for sort of the expectation of punishment. Also a karma kid thing. So basically everything I've talked about today so far is very much a karma kid belief, and the karma kid is one of the primary parts that keeps us stuck. But we are going to talk about in a minute some other parts as well, and the role they play in keeping us stuck. But this is a big one for us because it sort of solidifies our involvement in these sort of abusive family practices so that we can't ever step forward and say this is wrong, because now our karma kid believes we're just as much to blame as everybody else, right? For whatever reason. Again, the choice isn't really a choice, right? You don't have any power, so you can't make the choice, right? I mean, this comes back to some of the most basic conversations we have around consent and coercion, right? You can't make a choice when you are a child, okay? But they will use anything you do or say for survival purposes against you. Right? So, all right. The next belief I want to talk about has been a big one for me. It doesn't affect everybody. Sometimes abuse in a family is not directly tied to money, other than the fact that the person who is abusive is often the one with the most of it. Now, that can be very relative, right? But the person in power in a family is often the one who has the purse strings, right? So there is that element. However, if you've grown up in a family where there was some trafficking going on, this belief system is going to be pretty real for you. And to be fair, we may have grown up in an abusive family and not know that there was trafficking going on, because you don't always know. Like, you may be in a situation where you're abused by somebody, you don't know who this person is, it all seems very coincidental. And in reality, something was happening. There was an agreement behind the scenes, right? So, but we still internalize this message when that kind of thing happens, because we sort of know, like, we unconsciously know. We may not consciously know, but we unconsciously know. So this belief is that we matter less than money. Okay. And sometimes we matter far less than money. Like, it's not even close. Right? And as children, we can never possibly understand why that priority exists. Like, it doesn't make sense to us. We aren't in a place yet where we are so desperate for money as small children. But I will say that oftentimes, if we grow up in these environments by middle school, we are trying to sock away every cent we can so we can find some freedom and get out of these situations. But oftentimes, as little ones, we don't understand this. And so what they do is they try to tell us that we just can't understand this, and that they are 100% right for prioritizing, in this order that they are prioritizing. And that it's our fault for not understanding this. And that, in fact, this makes us very expendable, especially if we are not able to do anything for them, right? Now, this is the basis for people pleasing and for doing things for people above what we personally and authentically want in our lives, right? Like, we're putting everybody else first. We're people pleasing. We're doing what we can to get them to like us. And when we feel rejection, it can come in as like with so much panic, because we have been taught that our priority is just not that high for people, right? This is often a love seeker belief, although there can be elements of karmic and controller in here as well, that we have to find ways to be valuable to people so that they will love us. And yes, this can translate directly back to money, but it can also translate in other ways. Like, if I'm constantly cleaning the house and making everything perfect and doing what that other person wants me to do and always making choices for them, then maybe they'll prioritize me a little higher on that list, right? Like, I will move from 5 to 3 or something, or I'll keep working until I get to the top of that list, right? That is a belief system that we pick up on because of the priority we had as children, right? And the one I'm sharing here with you is about money. There can be others. Now, prioritizing jobs over us is the same thing, right? Like, I mean, it's still about the money, but there can be lots of other priorities, prioritizing stuff, prioritizing free time, prioritizing television and social media. Like, there's so many ways this can play out. But one of the biggest ones I've seen is this one about money. So I just wanted to bring that up. So yeah, it's like a race to get the most bucks, to get the biggest bank account. And that's what matters. And that's what makes you powerful. And that's what makes you better than other humans. And children don't matter as much as that. Right? And then when we become adults, we're still internalizing that. The last belief system I want to talk about today, and again, if you have one that you feel has been impacting you and your stuckness, feel free to bring that up as well. Carol is saying, I existed so food could be put on the table, right? So coming back to that money, the money being used for food. Yes, that's it. So, and, sometimes that means we'll even translate to, okay, as long as I can get everybody fed, they'll leave me alone. I mean, that's something to think about. But, that that kind of thing can happen too. So the last belief system I want to talk about is we can't trust anyone. Now, this is super important. And it really doesn't matter what kind of abuse you experience at home with this one. This idea that you cannot trust others other than your abusers, right? And the way that you're taught this one is nobody will ever be on your side. They're the only people you can truly trust is those people who are currently harming you. And this is put in place for a very, very significant and important reason, right? Like they often show us also that this is true by infiltrating and sabotaging our relationships, right? So they'll say you can't trust anybody but me. And then maybe as a child, you get out there and make a friend, and the friend seems like it's somebody who could be really supportive for you. Maybe you tell them a little something. Maybe you tell a teacher a little something. And next thing you know, that person doesn't like you anymore. And it all seems very odd and bizarre why this person would suddenly not like you anymore. And I have discovered so many times that my mother came into my life or somebody else came into my life and meddled in my relationships to ensure that I could never find anybody that I could sort of tell my abuse story to. And that's done on purpose. Actually, in some cases, one of the biggest focuses that abusers will have is like, whatever you do, do not let this kid or this young adult or this adult have any significant community or any significant friendships that could draw the truth out of them, right? Honestly, sometimes I think about this and I'm just like, the amount of time abusers spend on this stuff, like if they actually did something good with their time, it would be absolutely amazing, right? Like, true, wow, you guys sure are invested in this stuff, considering, it's all meant for bad reasons, right? This one I see as the basis for not trusting, and not trusting can be a really big freedom fighter thing. Like our isolator doesn't trust, also our mean kid doesn't trust, even the controller doesn't trust, but they have a different behavior around that lack of trust. Usually goes back into people pleasing or just really being inauthentic. It's like, that's a big thing. Isolator and mean kid will push people away, get away, do all that stuff is really big for them. But it does hold us back. Like not being able to trust anyone else does make it difficult for us to really push our lives forward in the way that we want. Now, all that being said, we do have to be very cautious. This is where we develop discernment, right? Like there are people we can't trust, right? So coming back to this idea that yes, there is some truth to this one. Normally, when we are still attracting into our space people like our abusers or our abusers themselves are still in our lives, yeah, we shouldn't trust, right? So we have to find those people we can trust through discernment, which means, of course, healing, because when we swing to the love seeker, we trust everyone when we shouldn't. And we swing to the isolator, we trust nobody ever, even when there possibly are some people in there we could trust. So this can get us stuck because it can keep us from making connections with people that will be really helpful in our lives. So these are the belief systems I wanted to bring to you today as I'm thinking more and more about what's going on with this abuser who just put all this stuff in my system on an unconscious level. I am like, wow, everything was a lie. And of course, I already knew everything was a lie. I've known for a while everything was a lie, but it feels like it's integrating on a much deeper level for me right now. My parts are going, oh, wow, everything was a lie. And so I thought I would bring these things to you today. Thank you so much for being here with me. Let me know if you have any questions or thoughts or comments about, what I've said today. See that Jan's made a comment, so I'm going to go down here and read it on my screen because my eyes are not what they used to be. Jan is saying great insight into false core beliefs imposed on us as children. Shining a light on this exposes its deception. So important for healing. Yes. So thank you, Jan. Thank you all. And I look forward to talking to you guys again next Tuesday, same time, same place. And who knows what's going to happen this week that's going to bring up a really great topic. We shall see. But thank you all. And I will talk to you all very soon.